Welcome back, live from Los Angeles. I am so thrilled to welcome to the show Mr. Frank Stallone, and welcome back Ms. Kira Lorsch. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's an honor to celebrate you and your community and the Thalians of Hollywood. So we mentioned it a little bit at the top of the show, but I would love for you to explain your involvement in this community.
Well, I was tapped as president of the Thalians. I was on the board, and I got involved about 10 years ago. I went to a meeting with my husband, Bob. He said, you might like this group. They're old Hollywood people. They're doing good with mental health, but they're kind of moving. They're not sure if they're staying at Cedars or doing something different. So I went to listen to what they had to say, and they were trying to come up with an idea for an honoree to shake things up and to get people re-excited about the Thalians, because a lot of their crowd it's Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Lucille Ball, all these old
We're obviously not going to show up.
Right,
Yeah, not gonna make it. Yeah,
or
not gonna
alive. Who
make
could
it.
we honor that would get people excited? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, why don't you honor Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Mansion and have it a really fun new sexy party? We'll get a really cool band to play, and it'll be the best party of the year. And at first I was like, are they going to put me out of here? Yeah. And Debbie was like, honey, I think that's a fabulous idea.
Go for it.
Yeah, so and it's Debbie Reynolds and Ruta Lee, and they started this as a mental health organization. They said all the good diseases are taken. Cancer, heart, all those fancy diseases. So they're going to help what you can't see, what's going on the inside. But also it was right in a kind of transition where we were moving to UCLA possibly, and I knew with my husband, Dr. Timothy Miller, who did reconstructive surgery on the patients of Operation Mend, and they were building their mental health programs to help support the families and the guys coming back after being blown up in Afghanistan, PTSD, totally their lives changed, body and on the inside, and coming back. And I'm like, this is really important. What about putting a face to mental health with our returning military men and women and really supporting where it's needed most? So that was our first gala honoring Hugh Hefner for his support and all of his philanthropic work for film preservation at UCLA. And also bringing in UCLA Operation Men for the first time, which we've continued, and now we're having a big holiday party. And Frank Stallone, I'm so excited, is our headliner with our band. He's going to do some throwback old Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, do some old stuff. Yeah. But the thing is, it's like in a town like Hollywood, there's a lot of people with mental health issues, mostly actors and actresses. So, but I mean, we're going to help the soldiers and coming back, which is a very important thing, considering we have one of the biggest hospitals in the country, right in Westwood. And you see some of these guys outside there, and they're just mentally ill. They got problems, It's not something you can just say, we'll just have a glass of warm milk and go to bed. They have issues. They need to be taken care of, and I think it's the greatest thing you can do is give back to people that have given so much.
I truly admire this about both of you, though, is that with such wildly successful careers, that you still take the time to give back. You're using all of your fame and your fortune for good in leading the community. What is it that you want to be known for? What is it that you really want to do to change the world?
Well, for me, I mean, my always stock in trade was music, and I think music in its own way changes the world. I mean, the Beatles and Elvis changed.
It's healing.
Yeah,
Sure. It really is
Michael
healing.
Jackson, for his time, changed the whole layout of music, which also affects people socially. Okay, like I remember when the Beatles first came out, my parents were like, I said, this is the coolest thing. They thought they were like Martians. I mean, I remember watching Elvis Presley on a TV this big, and of course, there were my relatives from Italy, can't speak English too well, going, hey, così pazzo criminale. I'm there like, oh, Marilyn, thank you very much. And I said, this is the coolest guy I've ever seen in my life. So I was already singing then. And then when the Beatles came out, that was it. That was the nail in the coffin. And my parents said, he's gone.
Right, but that's the whole thing about Hollywood is that the whole world looks and is inspired by Hollywood. And I think that that's kind of the tabloids make it out to be this ugly kind of dirty thing behind the scenes. And when you get into it, La La Land, there's so many extraordinary people doing so many things. So what can we expect? Because I'm bringing my dance shoes. So like,
Now, Hollywood does have good people. I mean, it's just the Oscars have changed. My first Oscar was 1977 when my brother was nominated for Rocky, and there you had William Holden, Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, you had the layout. Now it's just become a little bit of a political platform, and it's just a lot of mean spirit stuff. And it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be a celebration of the arts. As with the Grammys, and when I was nominated, you know who was the host? John Forsythe. Go figure. I mean, so it was a different world then. And I met Gene Kelly, Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, and they were all they were really brought up in the studio system, so they really conducted themselves accordingly in public, and they're always very polite, and they would always sign an autograph, they would always do. And now everyone's very testy and, political. If you don't do this, you don't do that. I mean, I don't care what anybody does. I mean, whatever they want. I mean,
It's a much more peaceful life when you don't
free world.
too much.
That's why we're keeping the tradition alive with the Thalians, to remember this old Hollywood, to remember what we were built on. And I think there is a lot of good in the world. And we do, as a successful in whatever careers that we're in, to use that as a platform to do good, and it feels good. I mean, when people are like, "Oh, you're doing so good," I'm like, "Yeah, because it feels good to do that. Like that's just what you're supposed to do."
We get to look through rose glasses,
Rose-colored lenses, that's right.
You know what? I remember Sammy Davis. Sammy Davis
Aaron.
was a spectacular guy. He was Mr. Show Business. He was everything about it was show business. And I used to go to his house, man. I say, Frank, and he was very in tune with everything. And he'd say, you know what, man, it's when you get successful, man, help a cat out, man. And he was very charitable in that sense. He goes, it's not always what you take out of life, what you put back. And he was like a guy, these guys like mentored people, up and coming comedians and stuff, because he was mentored by Frank. I mean, he was a great entertainer, but Frank kind of brought him into the forefront with the movies, Robin Seven Hoods and all that stuff like that. So he was kind of of that old school, and he was just cool. Everything about Sammy, the rings, everything. Glasses like this. I mean, but he was one of the greatest entertainers. He was like 112 pounds.
And everyone you're mentioning was a Thalian honoree, and used to go to the Thalians beach parties, and that's who Frank Sinatra would be the entertainment. Now we have Frank Stallone as the entertainment.
Same initials.
Yeah.
Give me his cufflinks.
Are you going to do some Sinatra for us?
I will do some
Okay,
Sinatra,
good.
yes.
Good.
I will do
So
that.
we can dance.
Okay, good.
Okay.
It's on.
Yes.
It's all about what you're going to wear, how you can dress, and you got to have the right shoes to be able to dance. That's the whole thing about this.
Well, it's
Is
fun
this
to
black
dress
tie?
up. It is. It's black tie. I call it Hollywood glamorous.
Well, can I just wear a black tie like a Chippendales?
They will not let you in the Bel Air
I'm going to
Country
wear your
Club.
glasses. I'm wearing the
I'm wearing my
glasses.
glasses. I'm going to do Candyman.
You can still wear the glasses.
You both have met some of the most iconic figures in Hollywood throughout your careers. Has there anyone that's been maybe the most memorable or the most inspiring to each of you?
Well, I can, living with my brother, who's kind of a somewhat icon in the movie business with Rocky and all that stuff. So I'm a little jaded, but I will tell you one time, when I went to see Frank Sinatra and I was brought backstage to meet him, I must say, I was really giddy and goofy, like, it's all blue eyes. Because
Put a spell on you just with the
Well,
eyes.
because I'd seen that face my whole life, and it's Frank Sinatra, movie star. And he was there, how you doing, my boy? I said, you mind if I get a picture? And I got a picture with Frank. And then I remember I was there with Gene Kelly at a function, and I met him in Paris. And he's like these old school actors, Catholic, because my name's Frank. Hey, nice to see you, Francis. They always call you by your confirmation name. Yeah. And he goes, did you meet Cary? I thought he said Gary. I turned around, I go, no, Gary who? He goes, Cary Grant. I go, hey, Frank, Cary Grant. I'm there, oh, God. And then Jimmy Stewart. So it's almost like an overblow because I love old movies. So, I mean, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So, it's incredible. So I was very smitten, and usually I'm somewhat jaded because I've been around it somewhat long, but there's certain people. I remember when Michael Jackson was over at my brother's house.
Yeah.
I walked in, I go, excuse me?
Yeah.
He's sitting there wearing a Mickey Mouse sweater. I go, it's the biggest guy in the world. And he was like a sweet, really nice guy, kind of funny. Nothing like you think he is on TV. He was like a totally different guy, but I go, man, this is like this is like Elvis time, you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
But so it's kind of cool when you see that stuff.
and it's nice, like you said, it's casual. It's in your living room. It's amongst your
Yeah.
family. So it's not like, oh, you're seeing them on the street and
No, they're totally different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're hanging out and they're in a safe element. One of the people that I've always I love The Godfather. I love all you Italians and your mobster movies.
We're
And,
obsessed.
yeah, so I love Goodfellas. And when I got to meet Paul Sorvino, who my PR guy, Roger Neal represents him, I'm like, I want to meet Paul Sorvino. I want to meet Paul Sorvino. And I ended up getting along great with him and his wife, and put them both in my movie, Acts of Desperation, which is out everywhere March. But we're closing the Culver City Film Festival December 9th. If anybody wants to come, you can get tickets on Eventbrite. But to work with him, to be around Paulie, who I idolized.
Paulie
And I'm
very
hanging out with him in my room, in my hotel room, having cocktails with him and his wife. And I'm like, this is the Hollywood dream come true.
Well, we love that project because desperate people do desperate things.
Yes.
Nice, Erin.
Yes.
Look at you. Quote.
Got a tagline and everything.
Been there.
I did the same weird thing because we love boxing in the Stallone family. So my brother has his wife said, you know what, you're taking over the house. We're just going to build a section for you. So he has all his stuff up that has to do with him and boxing. So all of a sudden I walk in, there's like Al Pacino, there's Tom Jones. So Al Pacino is like actually probably one of the nicest guys I ever met. And he's saying, they tried to fire me from Godfather. I go, come on. He goes, yeah, Francis said, I think they're going to fire you on Monday. He goes, and I go, yeah, because they didn't know what I was doing. I was working on this thing. I was working. So, okay, so tomorrow you got to whack out the two guys in the cafe. So Salazzo and Sterling Hayden. So they did that scene, and then all of a sudden, well, a lot of these guys aren't too bright sometimes. They saw he turned the corner, and he did have the tenacity to whack these two guys. Because before he was like Mike, the college guy. But he goes, I was building, because I'm a stage actor. He was building the character where he would grow into Michael Corleone. So he said, but I almost lost my job.
Wow. That's really
Al
interesting.
Pacino.
The behind the scenes stories.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I love it so much. So how can people support your program? How can people get involved?
Well, thanks to all of the support we've had over these past 10 years that I've been with the Thalians, we've been able to give $1 million to UCLA Operation Mend, and we just pledged another $1 million, which is great. But it's because everybody gives. You can go to thalians.org. You can come to our events. You can will all of your money to our organization.
That's right.
when you're ready, and no, nothing is too little, because everything builds and grows, and everybody who comes and talking about it. And there's so many little things you can do these days where you can choose what organization you give to. So whatever it may be, make sure that you're doing those things on Amazon and things like that, where you're automatically giving to wherever you want to give, including the Thalians.
Speaking of giving, do we get to take these coffees?
I think you probably get one.
It's pretty cool. Just in the Christmas spirit, since orange is my favorite color. So.
Dr. Erin says yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Doctor.
Merry Christmas.
All right. So we never gave you anything.
I got them all from Vicki Lawrence show, VH1, and they just say it'd be a Pat Sajak show. It's just that I said it's kind of cool because the people I hang around don't even know who these people are. I said, hey, who's that Pat Blackjack? I said, it's Pat Sajak. So, young kids, my son, they go, who's Vicki Lawrence? I said, okay.
Well, I would love it if the Good Morning LaLa is in your cupboard.
Yeah,
and you
that'd be
serve
nice.
that to any of your
It
guests.
will be.
We are so grateful for your time, for your talent, and your insight. We
absolutely.
look forward to celebrating you and the Thalians tomorrow night. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more on Good Morning LaLa Land.